Members of the press, fellow citizens and partisans, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The Liberian Council of Churches, under previous leaders, has largely remained focused on evangelist work and facilitating peace initiatives in Liberia. But the current council has permitted itself to be a stooge of the government. The MPC is not surprised that the likes of Aminata K. John, known facilitator of promiscuity and promoters of corruption, have infiltrated the council with their vile behavior. Members of the press, fellow partisans, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, despite a major march against drugs and the use of illicit substances in Liberia, the LDA's budget is about $3.4 million, but Bouakai spends about $10 million to protect himself and rise one of Africa's largest convoys, using much needed resources for important development on lavish living. The LCC is silent in the face of such wanton abuse. Fellow citizens and partisans, a broke Bouakai is spending $10 million on a private project in Foya for his personal luxury at the expense of the people's resources that who have built large public housings in Liberia, but the LCC is silent. The broke Bouakai has spent more than $5 million in 2 years on foreign travel at the expense of poor Liberians who stood in contaminated water and heavy downpour of rain, and heavy downpour of torrential rain to elect a man who couldn't afford a daily food and health bills. The LCC is silent while the citizens are exploited and bullied. They must wait for a development that will never come, but broke Bouakai and family are the biggest winners. Fellow citizens, members of the press, broke Bouakai fires officials who refuse to loot Liberia per his prescription, and while he fires others, he himself drenched in corruption and is the biggest looter, but the LCC is silent. Even as poor health and education consumes ordinary Liberians who are deprived of simple mandatory lives, services like water and sanitation, the LCC thinks it appropriate to defend abuse and misuse of public resources by Bouakai, who have converted public jobs to a local county and Bouakai family affairs. Members of the press, fellow partisans, listeners in Radio Land, while Mr. Simon Freeman remains the largest private employer in Liberia, with multiple businesses providing hope to the numerous unemployed Liberians, Bouakai Leslie sits at the mansion, provides no jobs, creates no jobs for young Liberians, but abuses state resources for personal gain at the expense of civil servants whose salaries were harmonized. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, fellow partisans, fellow citizens of the Republic of Liberia, today, Liberia could have been a visa-free country, inviting millions from around the world to explore our land, but Bouakai is too busy selling Liberia to the few foreigners that line his pocket with millions. Every major public licensing has been awarded to foreigners, but Bouakai is president for Liberians in the LCC is not cool with it. The LCC is a criminal enterprise, the largest assembly of crooks and criminals, through whom Bouakai is funneling stolen loot from Liberians. So obviously, it will be irritated when the source of its ill-gotten wealth is attacked. We know the gangsters operating under the name of a false god, not the one who is holy and righteous, and one who has no affiliation with injustice and indecency, will respond yet again in defense of their criminal godfather, Brock Bouakai, and their reply will not deter the MPC and our advocacy for a better Liberia. One in which hopelessly and deprivation will be unnamed on the pages of history books will be a show. Member of the press, fellow partisans, listeners in Radio Land, we, as members and supporters of the indomitable movement of progressive change, we stand free to supporting the legacy and to promoting the agenda of the movement for progressive change. We will not rest if that we will be mocked by any better driven politicians out there or chaotic institutions like the LCC. Will not resist, but will respond to them. Thank you.